This report is brought to you by Noble Gold and Silver. Last week, JP Morgan co-president Daniel Pinto warned that the stock market could be in for a deep correction of as much as 40% over the next few years. That will impact your now soaring IRA. Please see an important message from Noble Gold and Silver at the end of this report. Good afternoon. I'm still reporting on the coup. I have hesitated and hesitated and hesitated to bring this up, but at some point I'm not doing the truth any favors not to mention it as a possibility. There may be a secretive element within the FBI, or possibly not part of the FBI but working closely with it, that will stop at nothing to help Deep State maintain its power. That may, on the one hand, work to eliminate reporters one way or another, but on the other hand, even be facilitating these mass shootings to serve some perverse political agenda like repeal of the Second Amendment and the removal of the president. Yes, evidence seems to be mounting that the FBI has been involved in support for or encouragement of several of the mass shootings of the last few years. I know that this concept is so far out there that just a few months ago I wouldn't even have muttered this possibility to my wife for fear of being tin-foiled. But this stonewalling of documents has now reached the emergency zone where many are wondering, how come? 3 committees of the House of Representatives have now subpoenaed. This is not a voluntary thing. This is a mandatory production of documents. Subpoenaed a total of 1.2 million documents over the course of the last 2 years and have only received around, guess how much? They've only received around 3,000 of them out of 1.2 million. Only criminals behave this way. Even mild-mannered Attorney General Jeff Sessions is now reportedly angry about this. And so finally, Trump's new FBI director, Christopher Wray, Mr. Perfect Hair, has really put the hammer down on the accelerator pedal inside the FBI headquarters and said he will double the workforce, which is cleaning up, better known as hiding the worst of it, cleaning up these documents for eventual release. Oh, probably around 2054. We are talking about our federal police force here. There are no higher authorities among federal police forces. Who can make them comply? They're certainly not paying any attention to the people that are supposed to make them comply. That's the U.S. Congress. The only thing left is the Army. To prevent coups d'etats, the president actually has an element of the Army at his immediate disposal. It's known as the Old Guard on the west bank of the Potomac River, overlooking Washington, D.C., about 3 miles from the White House. They are officially known as the Army's 3rd Infantry Regiment. It is the oldest active duty regiment in the U.S. Army, first organized in 1784. Although most people only know them for their roles at ceremonial occasions in Washington, it is a fully armed and combat-trained military unit that can support the president during some unusual circumstances, such as civil insurrection. Bottom line, they could easily surround the FBI headquarters building and seize all documents in a few minutes and then run them up Capitol Hill to the various congressional committees. And reinforcements from the Marine base at Quantico, Virginia could be deployed downtown in less than an hour to relieve them. Believe it or not, this Old Guard scenario is not without precedent in U.S. history. It's a little-known fact that during the Saturday Night Massacre of October 1973, secret contingency plans were made to deploy the Old Guard to surround the White House grounds should then-President Nixon decide not to obey civil authorities in the event that he was impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate and therefore ordered to be removed from office. Fortunately, Nixon resigned in July 1974, just days before the House of Representatives, no doubt, would have impeached him and thereby eliminated this constitutional crisis where almost no one knew the full extent of what was really going on. On what grounds was Nixon impeached? He had been ordered to give up incriminating audio tapes by the Supreme Court and still refused. At this point, I suspect that not just a couple of top-level FBI managers need to be fired, indicted, and tried by a jury of their peers. I suspect that there is something so rotten within the 7th floor of the headquarters building that no one will speak about it above a whisper. I suspect that the Clinton criminal cabal has been running the show there for many years, with all that entails. I further suspect that the FBI's counterintelligence division is in many cases being used against American citizens and not for the benefit of the United States of America. Why else would the nation's leading police agency so flaunt not only the law, but the basic spirit of our Constitution by providing zero transparency in the face of a whole lot of obvious criminal activity? Even members of Congress fear this group. For example, I believe that recently retired Congressman from Utah, Jason Chaffetz, stumbled upon the truth and soon thereafter quickly retired. Notice how Chaffetz refuses to answer a direct question to that just this morning, twice.
Well, was the FBI dragging its feet in the past? Was it dragging its feet today? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely pathetic. The FBI put out a statement saying they're looking at this request. A request? It's a subpoena. I mean, if you got it on the receiving end of a subpoena, do you think that's just a request or do you have to comply? The reality is I issued a subpoena as the chairman of the Oversight Committee in September of 2016. You have Devin Nunes in the Intel Committee that was looking at this in August of 2017 and had to issue a subpoena. Bob Goodlatte has now issued a subpoena in 2018, and they're just getting, geared up to add a few more people.
God, the question then becomes, why is it not a priority? And there's got to be one or two answers, right? Either it's not urgent to them, or perhaps they're trying to keep something from Congress. What's your hunch?
They're absolutely obstructionists. And I'm sorry, but Attorney General Sessions, I don't see much of a difference between him and Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder. I mean, what's the difference?
What do you think they're hiding?
Well, that's what you don't know. Remember, this is a closed case. There is no excuse for not producing these documents.
Yeah, last point here. But what Bob Goodlatte is saying is that it's not about the Hillary Clinton matter. It's not about her email investigation, although the documents relate to it. It's about how the FBI conducted itself. What do you think they'll find?
Well, that's why you expose the sunlight. The sunlight is the best disinfectant. And if you're going to make sure that it never, ever happens again, then you've got to be able to get in there and see that. And you know what? The bureaucracy, the deep state, they will act better if they know that there's going to be some oversight and some people looking over their shoulders sometimes.
Why? Tucker Carlson is approaching this subject wisely, very gingerly, but with determination.
Well, the FBI ignored warnings about Nicholas Cruz in Florida. In Garland, Texas, an agent directly assisted Islamic extremists who attempted to commit a massacre. Now it turns out that the FBI recruited the father of Pulse nightclub shooter Omar Mateen as an informant. And yet, somehow, despite that, they didn't notice that Mateen was plotting this massacre, they say. They covered up that failure for nearly 2 years. Glenn Greenwald is the co-founder of The Intercept. He joins us tonight. Glenn, you've written a bunch of stories on this, and at first I wondered why, because it seemed like a pretty straightforward story. I thought we knew kind of what we were going to know, but you were right. There was a lot we didn't know. Tell us what we didn't know about this massacre.
The primary narrative that the media circulated pretty much until this minute is totally false, namely that Omar Mateen went into Pulse with the intention to target gay people. Lots of people love this narrative. The right loved it because they like to depict Muslims as being incompatible with the West and hating gays. The left loved it because it put LGBTs as the victim of a hate crime. The security state loved it because they like to pretend they defend liberalism with the CIA and the FBI. The reality is that he had never been to Pulse. He had gone to multiple other locations in the days leading up to the attack and on that day that had nothing to do with the gay community. Disney, other places that he had judged were too fortified by security. And he chose Pulse randomly by entering Google and asking, what is a Orlando downtown nightclub? The evidence is overwhelming that he was motivated, not anything to do with gays, but by what he said during the entire attack, which was it was being done in retaliation for what he perceived as 15 years of U.S. killing of Muslims,
Yes.
women and children who are innocent in Muslim countries.
Interesting. Now we learn that his father was an FBI informant. This fits a pattern with these massacres, and I don't think we know enough to really understand what it means, but tell us what we do know about this.
Well, so the FBI has been caught lying repeatedly throughout this case. The day after the Pulse attack, they detained his wife for 17 hours. She had a small infant. She has a very low IQ. And they got her to sign a statement that was filled with false claims, including the fact that she had gone to Pulse with her husband to case it. They investigated it, and they determined, the FBI did, that she had never been to Pulse. They got her to sign a false statement by threatening they would take away her child, by playing on her vulnerabilities, and they hid from the court the fact that many of the key statements, the incriminating ones that they got her to sign, were false. What they also hid, not just from the court, but from her lawyers, was this critical fact, namely that Omar Mateen's father, who they had planned to call as a witness, was working as an informant very closely with the FBI for 11 years, from 2005 to 2016. The FBI had twice investigated Omar Mateen after he was boasting about having connections to terrorism, and they decided they wouldn't investigate him further. They weren't going to arrest him. They weren't going to do anything. Jim Comey said, we're going to provide an explanation about why we made that choice. To date, they've never done so. When we called them for comment, they refused. And as it turns out, they were talking to their informant during the time they were investigating Omar Mateen. It's pretty clear that they decided not to arrest him because they were working so closely with his father, a fact, as you said, that they concealed from everybody until just a couple days ago.
That is, it's just I mean, you or I lied to the FBI, were charged with a felony.
So, if the FBI throws open its gates and provides Congress with its 1.2 million documents immediately, like this Friday, in unredacted form, I will withdraw my suspicions, say that I may have been mistaken, or even plead temporary insanity. But I doubt that's going to happen. If I were in Trump's shoes, I'd surround the place with the old guard and seize those documents this coming Sunday, then run them up on Capitol Hill to Congress. And I think the American people would be aghast at what was in those documents in unredacted form. I'm still reporting from just outside the one-time free speech capital of the world. Good day. Although the equity markets have been booming since Trump was elected, the Fed is now starting to raise interest rates. This is not President Trump's fault, but it will surely suck money out of the debt money economy, and that will be a negative drag on the Trump stock market. Noble Gold and Silver specializes in converting your stock market holdings in your IRA into gold or silver, and now also Bitcoin, to continue to grow its value even as equity markets decline.
Our crypto for IRA program is unique. We have not only the lowest fees in the industry, but I think that the real benefit is that people will be able to buy Bitcoin. If it goes up dramatically, they can sell it, keep the money in the IRA, tax deferred. I really do think buying it in an IRA is the best way to do it, because you can defer all those taxes.
As stocks start their inevitable cyclical downturn, alternatives like gold, silver, and Bitcoin will find favor with big money, and knowing that can protect the value of your IRA. And despite recent weakness, most experts believe Bitcoin will triple by the end of the year, putting it far above its all-time highs posted last December. Call Noble Gold and Silver at 877-646-5347 for a quick, no-obligation assessment of your IRA status, and be sure to ask how to get your special report on the real inflation rate, Government Lies Exposed.